One of television's most famous child actors is striking it big. Alyssa Milano, who played Tony Danza's tomboy daughter, Samantha Michelli, is on the hit TV series. She was on the hit TV series Who's the Boss, and she could thank her career for her love of baseball. Alyssa writes all about it in her new book called Safe at Home: Confessions of a Baseball Fanatic. Alyssa, good morning.
Good morning.
I was just saying, I feel like I grew up with you, and I did. I mean, so many of us, I think, grew up watching Who's the Boss.
I think that's the beauty of television, actually, especially during that time, that family sitcom era, because it's people invite you into their homes.
You said you feel like the eternal cousin, right?
I feel
to a
like
lot of people.
Cousin.
Yeah,
which has actually been, it's been so lovely because I don't have the type of career where people are intimidated to approach me, or I've always been very accessible. So
very approachable, sort of the girl next door. And actually, what's interesting about your book is who knew you had such a love of baseball, and your love is so great that you actually got Joe Torre, former Yankees coach, now Dodgers coach, wrote the foreword, and he writes all about what you two share in common. You're both Brooklynites, transplanted to Los Angeles, both passionate about the Dodgers and your love of the game baseball. And so you must be really thrilled that he's out there on the West Coast with you right now.
So thrilled, I can't even tell you. And my dad is equally as thrilled. And just the fact that he wrote the foreword is just amazing. I feel so blessed. And, basically I just sent him the first chapter to see if he would be interested, and he said yes. So, it's amazing.
And you talk about your dad, because really this is a book that's much more than just about the love of the game. It is about that bond and the time you had with your dad as a little girl, going to the game and watching the games, or even listening on the radio, right?
I think the most special, one of the most special things about baseball is it's such a generational gift, and it's handed down from one generation to the next. And my dad was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, who was heartbroken when the Dodgers left New York, and then he became a Yankees fan. And I literally grew up watching baseball on his lap. And it was always, the book is called Safe at Home because in the craziness of this industry and being a child star, which had its own, craziness to boot, it was, I always felt safe at home. And a lot of that was the connection that I had with both of my parents and the connection I had with my dad.
Yeah, in fact, in the book, you say it was sort of an escape from, as you phrase it, that share of rejection and character building work. So it really kind of took you to another realm with your dad.
I think that the beautiful thing about actually going to see a baseball game is you have 40,000 people concentrated on one result. So it's very easy to leave everything behind and just focus on what's happening, which is your team.
Do you think that's what kept you more grounded, because you see so many of the youth growing up in Hollywood who go in a lot of different directions, and you ended up so well?
I think that for me, if I had the choice of going to a club and drinking at, underage drinking, or going to a sporting event, I chose the sporting event every time. I mean, I had season tickets for the Los Angeles Kings, when I was a teenager, when they still wore the yellow and purple jerseys, before Gretzky even got there. So that was really...
Guys must loved you, meanwhile. Well, speaking of guys loving you, you actually, you've had 3 pitching paramours: Carl Pavano, Barry Zito, and Brad Penny. And I guess you thought you had sworn off baseball players after Barry, but in 2005, Brad said, "Hey, let's go on down and check out the clubhouse," right?
Yeah, and he had me at "Let's go down, check out the clubhouse."
The clubhouse, right?
That was, my 20s were, I think, a hard time trying to figure out what I wanted in relationships. Dated 3 pitchers, which was an obvious pattern that needed to be broken.
Yeah.
But it was a special time in my life. They're all great guys, and I learned about the sport more, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Well, Alyssa Milano, stick around with us. We're going to have you stick around and talk to us a little bit more about your book and other things coming up right after your local news.
We're continuing our conversation with Alyssa Milano, who's here.
Hi. That's right. Yeah, and she, of course, has the new book. Of course, we all grew up watching her on camera on Who's the Boss, but now her new book is called Safe at Home, and she talks about all things baseball in it and the bond that she had with her father going to baseball games and how over the years it's helped her grow up into a grounded young woman. And I guess where we left off, I was asking about your relationships with some of the past players, but you're actually engaged. We were noticing your beautiful ring.
I'm engaged, and he doesn't play
baseball.
He doesn't play any sport, actually.
Yeah,
he's a talent agent. We've been together for 2 years, and he's
a really good time in your life.
Thank you.
So nice.
It's such an exciting time, and you hear people talk about this time, and you say, well, how great could it be? It's, but it really is special. We I cry at the drop of a hat now because I've turned into this romantic mushball.
Oh,
good. Well, that's a good thing.
Everyone deserves that, and good for you.
Thank you.
One of the other characters that we, of course, watched you as is Phoebe Halliwell in the show Charmed, longest running show with female leads on television.
Pretty amazing.
Why do you think it had such a captive audience?
I think really because the show first was so entertaining and it took you sort of out of your, we fought demons every week, so it was, I think, really mostly about the sisters, and then the demonology and the witchcraft was always in the backdrop, and I think that people really connected to the sister relationships. And, women fans are the most loyal in the business.
Are
That's
they?
true.
Are we?
It's absolutely
the most
true.
loyal?
There you go.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
It's why most of the female-driven shows do well and last
So
longer.
you're saying really that all network executives should really be paying more attention to helping the female audience be happier with the programming.
Yes, and also the women do most. That's right. The women do most.
That's the key to programming.
The most do they buy the most stuff too? So the networks can actually charge more for the advertising.
Now this is a bright programmer right here.
This was my pitch to Major League Baseball when I was going to sell the clothing line to them. I had
What you're doing now.
Yes, I had this very intimidating conversation with them about why women sports fans needed things other than pink.
Right.
And
thank you for doing that, by the way.
Pitch to them was, you're welcome. Part of my whole pitch to them was about how loyal the female fan was, and I used that sort of television knowledge that I had, and translated it to
Alyssa Milano, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with your book.
Thank you.
Sorry, my hands are so cold.
Marriage.
Thank you so much.
It's really lovely.
Thank
Just
you.
great to see you. Beautiful.